Right, hello guys, welcome back. Today I have a new Prismatic Hunter build for you that's the absolute pinnacle of all damage resist focused hunter builds that also packs a mean punch and provides a good break from all the common playstyles like the Liar Caliban punch combo or the Synthoceps Threaded Spike melee combo. Getting right into it, today's build is going to revolve around the Hunter exotic class item, and in order to achieve absurd levels of damage resistance, we're going to need a very specific combo of perks, the first of which is Spirit of Renewal. Spirit of Renewal is going to make it so standing inside your Stasis Duskfield Grenade rapidly grants you stacks of frost armor, and this effect has actually received a buff this season. Previously, before Episode Heresy, frost armor used to grant 4.5% damage resistance per stack, but now, post-patch, it received a buff where it grants 6.25% per stack instead, meaning that at the maximum 5 stacks of the buff, we now have a 31.25% damage resist as our starting baseline. On top of that, Spirit of Renewal also received a buff where it now applies frost armor 2 times faster than it used to, which just means you're able to carry the maximum stack count for a longer duration now. The second perk that complements Spirit of Renewal incredibly well is Spirit of Cyrtarachne, yet another grenade focused perk that in this case applies Woven Mail to you for 10 seconds after throwing your grenade. And as a reminder, Woven Mail is a 45% damage resist, so if you put the maximum stack count of frost armor and Woven Mail together, you're already looking at a comfy 62.2% damage resist, and all for simply throwing your grenade and standing within it. By the way, throwing your prismatic grenade also applies Woven Mail to you, just to make it clear. This combo is the foundation of today's build, and with the right setup, it's possible to raise this percentage all the way up to, and I'm not even joking, 99% damage resistance. So how on earth are we possibly going to get there? Well, we ought to start by talking about our subclass makeup, and from here on, throughout the rest of the video, I'll be featuring a total damage resistance tracker in the top left corner so you can watch the setup complete itself in real time. And to start with, because we've already talked about the frost armor and Woven Mail from the class item, the tracker will begin at 62.2% like we just discussed. And real quick before we get stuck in, I'd encourage you to join my community Discord server. A big goal of mine this year is to expand my community, and if you're looking for a place where you can check out my full catalog of builds and hang out with me and the rest of our awesome community we have here, then do consider joining, link in the description. Okay then, kicking things off, we have our super of choice, which is going to be Shadow Shot Deadfall. This super is an excellent utility option for both crowd control and providing a consistent debuff source for your team, and on top of that, the innate void suppression effect lets you stun overload champions, which is a nice bonus to have. Another good reason we need Shadow Shot is because when combined with the Facet of Purpose Fragment, collecting an Orb of Power will grant Void Overshield for 5 seconds, and the Overshield itself has a 70% damage resistance, meaning we can now update the tracker to our next value of 88.7%. Let's continue climbing. For our class ability, we're going to be taking Gambler's Dodge so that we're able to restore our melee ability whenever we use it near enemies. For the melee, we're taking Threaded Spike since it's a pretty solid ability that also applies the Sever debuff to any targets it hits, which as a reminder is a 40% reduction to outgoing enemy damage, which in simple terms is basically yet another 40% damage resistance we can tack on to the build. So again, drumroll please, our latest figure is 93.2%, assuming we have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, Void Overshield, and the enemy shooting you is severed, of course. The grenade is of course going to be the Duskfield Grenade since it's what allows Spirit of Renewal to function, and with a short cooldown of only 1 minute and 31 seconds plus the rest of the build, we're going to have these coming back pretty often. Now we're moving on to our aspect selection, the first of which is going to be Winter's Shroud. This aspect makes it so dodging near targets slows them, but we're not really here for that this time round. Instead, we're actually way more interested in the second portion. Slowing targets briefly increases your class ability regeneration. This is actually a 300% regen boost for 3 seconds, which feeds really well into our next aspect, Ascension. Ascension allows you to consume your class ability to twirl your arc staff upwards, jolting any nearby targets and making you amplified. Ascension also got a buff this season where it's now capable of activating the effects of your equipped class ability, and because we have Gambler's Dodge, using it near targets will restore your Threaded Spike. These aspects go quite nicely together, and also, being amplified now grants you a flat 15% damage resistance. So again, we're updating the tracker to 94.2% if we have all the previous effects. Now let's talk fragments, the first being Facet of Hope, which is going to make it so whenever you have an elemental buff, your class ability recharges faster, and if you have at least 2 buffs, this is a 60% regen boost, which is going to help with regenerating our Ascension faster. Next, we're taking Facet of Blessing so that kills with Threaded Spike start your health regeneration, and while Transcendent, it also starts health regeneration for your allies. We've already discussed why we have Facet of Purpose, which was for the Void Overshield portion, so next we're taking Facet of Bravery. Facet of Bravery is going to make it so getting melee kills grants your strand weapons unraveling rounds, and we will be using a strand weapon alongside this build because of all the beneficial strand focused artifact perks this season. season, so we'll reconvene when we discuss those shortly. Next, we're taking Facet of Protection, which is very important for this build because whenever you're surrounded by 3 or more enemies, you gain a flat 15% damage resistance by default. But if you're surrounded and Transcendent, this now jumps to 32% because being Transcendent gives you a further 20% resist. So when they stack together, it becomes 32% in total, bumping our overall total to 96.1%. Lastly, the final fragment is a bit of a free roll, so you can kind of pick what you want here, but I've opted for Facet of Balance, which is going to make it so kills with light damage grant melee energy, and kills with dark damage grant grenade energy. Okay then, now let's talk weapons, and for this build, it's going to be to your benefit if you choose to run a Strand primary. Reason being, we have 2 very nice artifact perks that mesh very well with Strand. Unraveling Orbs to make your Strand weapons apply Unravel after collecting an orb, then Horde Shuttle so that Threadlings can spawn from within unraveled targets. Next, you're also going to want some sort of Void weapon to pair with the build, because again, there are several beneficial Void perks in the artifact that boost the overall build. If you have it though, I'd strongly encourage using Buried Bloodline, since for one, it gives you access to Devour, which helps to get your Duskfield back faster, but also because it's a sidearm, it can take advantage of anti-barrier sidearm this season as well. So how about those artifact perks? The first big one we want is Volatile Marksman in column 2, because it's going to make it so rapid Void weapon precision hits or rapid Void weapon final blows grant you volatile rounds, which is nice, but the best part is definitely the boost, which reads Volatile Detonations grant class ability energy, which by the way was also recently buffed from 7% per blast to now 9% per blast, which feeds nicely into getting our Ascension back. Next, in column 3, we're also going to want Dielectric so that defeating arc debuff targets grants Bolt Charge, and then the boost is also quite nice because it allows defeating arc debuff targets to spawn an Orb of Power and heal a small portion of your health, which is great for getting more consistent Void Overshield. Hopping over to column 4 now, we first want Flashover to make it so your Bolt Charge detonations deal 2.5 times more damage, and then after that we're also taking Defibrillating Blast. This perk will make it so stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of Bolt Charge, but also it allows all of your lightning bolts to apply Jolt and heal you, which is another great way this build is able to dip into Bolt Charge. But if you aren't playing content that features champions, you can instead opt for a weapon featuring the new Rolling Storm perk. My recent favorite pick, which you might have caught from the gameplay, is the new seasonal machine gun Watchful Eye with Overflow Rolling Storm. And also, because it's a seasonal weapon, you can slot the new Fragile mod, Power of Resolve, that makes it so continued damage releases a Taken Seeker projectile that stuns unstoppable champions. And given that machine guns are also overload this season, you can now stun 2 types of champs in a single gun, as well as generate lots of Bolt Charge at the exact same time. So give it a try if you haven't already. Finally, the last perk you'll want is Void Flux, more so if you're opting for Buried Bloodline, because it makes it so defeating weakened targets with a Void weapon applies Volatile. And if you have Buried Bloodline's Catalyst, every hit while Devour is active applies Weaken, so this perk and its Catalyst go hand in hand. Another thing I want to mention about Spirit of Renewal is that enemies within your Duskfield also receive an outgoing damage reduction, much like how Sever works, but in the case of Renewals, it's actually a 50% outgoing reduction. So if you now add this on top of what we already have, we're now at a whopping 98.0% total resist, getting ever so close to that sweet 99. So how do we seal the deal? Stats. Stats is the answer, because having 100 resilience grants a 30% overall damage negation. So if we factor that in, we now arrive at a 98.6% overall resist, which if you round up is 99%, so don't be mad at me. For the rest of your stats, I'd shoot for 100 discipline as well, 50 mobility so that when combined with the bonus 50 you get from being amplified lets you reach 100 mobility too, then pour the rest into recovery and strength if you can. Okay then, let's finish up by talking about our mod selection. Starting with the helmet, we're taking a single copy of Hands-On for some bonus super energy, special ammo finder, and Void Siphon. For the gloves, we're taking Impact Induction, Bolstering Detonation, and a single copy of Heavy-Handed to make the occasional orb from a melee kill. Chest piece is just general resist mods like always. Then for the boots, you'll want Void Scavenger if using a Void special weapon, and if not, swap it for Absolution. Then also Innovation and Recuperation for some orb collection bonuses. Finally, for the class item, it doesn't really matter because a lot of the mods don't work with Ascension, so I've gone for Proximity Ward, Reaper, and Special Finisher to keep my Buried Bloodline topped up. As far as the gameplay loop is concerned, this build is all about getting in your enemies' faces and tanking them point blank, since, you know, you can, so why not? Feel free to push a big group of ads, put your grenade down, chuck your melee, pop your Ascension to get it back, then proceed to get as many kills as you can until you're able to do it all again. Here's the fashion I use, so feel free to copy it if you like it, and the dim link is in the description. But if you'd like to browse my builds in a more organized manner, I'd better suggest joining my Discord server, since again, they're all in one neat little place. Anyway, that's all for today, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.